In 1969, a 67-day UAW strike paralyzed GM, slashing Corvette production and triggering boardroom panic. Officially, the story ends with cancelled LS7 engines and missing records, but evidence points to rushed assembly, destroyed tooling, and secret directives that nearly erased America's iconic sports car. If these decisions truly shaped the 1970 Corvette's fate, what really survived, and what was engineered to disappear? On the factory floor in St. Louis, silence replaced the usual clatter as a strike by the United Auto Workers took hold in May 1969. For 67 days, assembly lines stood idle, unfinished Corvettes gathered dust, and parts shipments dried up. Shift logs from that summer record blank columns, no output, no movement, and workers were sent home as the backlog grew. When the strike finally lifted, management pushed for a rapid restart. But the 6-month delay left little room for caution. Dealers demanded cars, executives demanded numbers, and the workforce returned to a plant running on desperation and improvisation. With supply chains still fractured, crews made do with what was available. Leftover components from the previous year filled gaps on the line. Standard checks and quality inspections were bypassed or hurried, as every finished car became a small victory against lost time. The usual rhythm of model year change vanished. Corvettes for 1970 began rolling out months late, some built with parts intended for 1969. Production records confirmed just 17,316 units for the year, a sharp drop from the previous run and the lowest since 1962. Line workers later described the chaos, missing trim, mismatched hardware, and unrecorded substitutions as teams raced to meet quotas. Quality assurance steps, once routine, were skipped or condensed. Each vehicle that left the plant carried the marks of this disruption. In the scramble to recover, documentation slipped and the door opened for undocumented anomalies to enter the record. For the Corvette, survival came at the cost of certainty, as the boundaries between official procedure and improvised solution blurred with every car that left the line. Inside General Motors headquarters, financial losses from the strike weighed heavily on every executive decision. The cost spiral from halted production and missed sales targets left the Corvette program exposed. Insurance companies were raising rates on high horsepower cars, and new emissions standards loomed on the horizon, threatening to make some of General Motors' most powerful engines obsolete before they ever reached the showroom. Boardroom discussions turned urgent as internal memos circulated, some speculating on whether the Corvette should be cut entirely to stem the bleeding. While no official minutes from these meetings survive, the pressure is evident in a sudden round of audits and cost reviews, with entire engineering programs placed under the microscope. The LS7 engine, once promised as a 465 horsepower flagship for the 1970 Corvette, became a lightning rod for these anxieties. Within a single day, the program was ordered to shut down. Engineers were told to halt all development and testing, with a 24-hour notice to strip prototypes and account for every piece of specialized tooling. Allegations surfaced of a prototype crash at high speed, possibly involving a well-connected family, but no police or insurance records confirm the story. What is certain is that after the shutdown, a number of parts specific to LS7 vanished from inventory lists. Serial numbers for key tooling and engine components failed to appear in subsequent audits, and no official explanation was ever filed. The abruptness of the LS7's cancellation left a void in the paper trail. Some insiders whispered about a directive to destroy evidence, covering not just engines, but also blueprints and casting molds. Whether by design or by the chaos of the moment, the documentation gap would frustrate investigators and collectors for decades to come. Lab teams began with the Corvette's body panels, slicing cross-sections from unrestored survivor cars for analysis. Spectroscopy results confirmed standard General Motors fiberglass, with resin signatures matching commercial suppliers, and no evidence of aerospace composites or surplus military materials. Paint samples from several cars, including rare Hugger orange and Marlboro maroon, revealed conventional chemistry, though some batches showed unusually high pigment density. Restoration experts attribute this to hurried mixing on the factory floor, not a deliberate engineering upgrade. Attention then shifted to convertible tops. Claims of tank-grade fireproof fabric circulated among collectors, but fiber analysis identified standard vinyl-coated polyester, consistent with General Motors' supplier contracts from 1969. The material met federal safety codes, but offered no extraordinary resistance beyond period norms. Testing the coolant in original radiators, chemists searched for traces of naval antifreeze formulas. Chromatography detected only ethylene glycol, the industry standard, with no additives linked to submarine or aviation applications. The myth of nuclear-grade coolant found no support in the samples tested. Frame sections underwent metallographic inspection for thickness and alloy composition. Measurements showed some frames at the upper end of General Motors' specification, with minor variations in steel gauge. Metallurgists concluded these differences resulted from supply inconsistencies during the strike, not intentional reinforcement. The findings left one question open. If not by exotic materials or secret upgrades, what accounts for the lasting mystique and resilience of these strike-era Corvettes? Collectors and forensic inspectors began their search for answers under the hood, where rumors of lost LS7 engines and covert race packages still echo through the Corvette community. Close inspection of engine stampings on several unrestored 1970 cars revealed casting marks that do not match any known General Motors production codes from the era. Some blocks show hand-etched numbers or irregular fonts, sparking debate among experts about whether these are remnants of pre-production LS7 parts or simply artifacts of rushed assembly during the strike. Attention soon turned to the elusive ZR1 code, a supposed backdoor option for factory race preparation. In one case, a dealer order sheet surfaced, authenticated by handwriting analysts, bearing a code never seen in official General Motors literature. The document lists serial number 0001, an early production coupe, with a notation for non-standard paint and an engine package not found in any surviving build sheets. Forensic paint analysis of this car's panels, performed in a private lab, identified a deep red pigment with a metallic base layer, distinct from any catalogued 1970 Corvette color. The lab's report confirmed a match to the Crimson Pearl formula, though no record of this shade exists in General Motors archives. A verification caption now appears on the evidence, clarifying that while the provenance chain for serial 001 is incomplete, the physical and documentary anomalies are authentic and remain under ongoing review. These findings raise new questions about whether certain cars were intentionally built outside official channels, and if so, what motives drove those decisions. Arkus-Duntov, often called the father of the Corvette, operated with a mix of engineering rigor and quiet defiance. In the aftermath of the strike, as confusion reigned on the factory floor and the future of the Corvette hung in the balance, Duntov's fingerprints appeared in places only the most attentive would notice. Archival memos reveal his persistence in pushing for performance, even as official horsepower figures for the LT1 engine were published at 370 horsepower, while dynograph records from the period show output closer to 400 horsepower. This pattern of underrating was not unique to the LT1, but it was especially pointed during an era when insurance companies and federal regulators scrutinized every number. Duntov's strategy allowed the Corvette to slip through regulatory nets, preserving its spirit without drawing unwanted attention. Restorers and forensic experts today rely on these original dynagraphs, faded but legible, as a baseline for authentication. Each anomaly, whether a hand-modified engine tag or an out-of-spec paint formula, invites closer examination, demanding a level of proof that only layered evidence can provide. The search for intent, for a deliberate survival plan, turns on these small but telling discrepancies, linking the chaos of 1970 to the calculated actions of one determined engineer. Authenticating a 1970 Corvette with rumored LS7 or ZR1 pedigree begins with a methodical checklist. Inspectors start by tracing the car's VIN and cross-referencing it with known production records. Engine stampings are examined for irregular fonts or hand-etched marks, but these alone cannot confirm a factory LS7 install. Paint analysis follows, with labs comparing pigment layers to documented formulas. Any deviation, such as the crimson pearl hue found on serial number 0001, triggers deeper scrutiny, but without a continuous provenance chain, anomalies remain inconclusive. Original dealer paperwork, if present, is reviewed for non-standard codes or handwritten notations, yet even authenticated documents must be matched to physical evidence on the car itself. Restoration costs for these high-profile Corvettes can exceed $100,000, especially if rare parts or forensic testing are required. Auction results show that cars with verified misbuilds or unique provenance often command premiums of 20 to 50% over standard models. For collectors, the incentive is clear: proof drives value. The call now goes out for owners to submit their cars and documents for independent review, and for General Motors to open its archives to settle the debate once and for all. Today, the line between myth and fact still divides Corvette history. As rare 1970 models command record prices and new evidence surfaces, the unresolved questions drive collectors and engineers alike. In the end, chaos did not just threaten an icon, it forged its legend. What story will tomorrow's discoveries tell?